Hi everyone, welcome back to People-Centered Innovation, Wrangle's newest podcast series with mini episodes that discover the intersection of people and technology. Today I'm talking to Myron Parks. He's a director of technology at Appnovation, and he's previously the director of quality at Rangle. Myron's also a great personal friend. Hey Myron, how's it going today?
Good, Rebecca. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for joining us.
That's my pleasure.
So I understand you've got a pretty cool topic for us today. Why don't you introduce the concept you want to talk about?
Yeah, I've been thinking about agility in the enterprise for a bit. In my current role, I'm actually running 5 different practices to achieve this idea I had a while ago of building an end-to-end delivery pipeline. And one of the questions that I've been answering internally so that I can get more stakeholders on board is this idea of, well, what is the benefit to building an end-to-end delivery pipeline for enterprises or companies that are trying to deliver value to the market? And I think the answer I came up to is this. There's 2 schools of thought when it comes to building something very important to add value to the market. One school of thought says, we should make sure it's done and almost perfect before we launch it, or what I like to call done. And then there's another school of thought, which we see with our most agile product teams, is this idea of just getting something out, inspecting, adapting, iterating. And both sides, like when I talk to them about the other, they ask, well, what's the reason that they're using that other thing, or what's the benefit of using one or the other? And so I'll just go ahead and say right now that my preference is the former, getting something out, getting some feedback, and iterating with a product team or a more product-centric team. But the difference I find is between that getting something out and getting something out that's completely done is all profit, all value for the people who are building it. I call it like a pot of gold. The additional resource, the additional capacity that it would cost to get things done is all something that may be excess. You may not need that full thing to be perfect, or it may be impossible to achieve that perfect thing without input from your stakeholders or your actual customers or your clients. And so getting something out is far preferable to getting something out that's perfect or done, or what we believe is perfect and or done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's something that we've always preached at Rangle during our time here and now, that it's about an MVP, a minimum viable product. And the main point of that is that you put it out in the market to get that feedback. You're not really going to understand your product market fit until it's in the market and you're getting that real time, really valuable feedback from your customers or your end users. And I think that's what makes this people-centered. You've got to get the product to the people in order to make sure that it's really serving a need that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's the key thing. Starts with the team. You want to build a team that's to learn, and the people that you're typically learning from are really the people that you want to add value for in the market. They know themselves. They know what they need. When you build your persona, you build your journey maps, and you do all the things that you should do from a product perspective to land on that first shot in the market. It really is that, but you're only building yourself the ability to listen to the market better. You're peeling back the layers of an onion. You're putting a scope to the chest of a patient because you don't know what. So, okay, you know what they came for. A client may say, or a customer may say, "Hey, look, I'm coming to play the latest video game that comes out," but they don't know what that is. They're just looking for the latest one that came out that meets a few core needs. But you're not going to know when you hear that. And similar to a heart patient, you're not going to know if it's an arrhythmia or something much more serious. So this is why, in the medical sense, and I heard this body analogy from a really great architect, uh, a few years ago. You put, a stethoscope to the chest, you run some X-rays, you do an EKG or an ECG, you do all these different types of tests to get closer to the problem, closer to the need. And that's what you're doing. That's what I recommend we do when we are releasing that minimum viable product so that we can serve people and get closer to the need. When you're an enterprise or a product company, the best thing you can do is create an environment where you're learning from your audience. Like I was saying earlier, you get an initial shot, you do some initial research, you bring people onto the team that understand the vertical or that understand the problem, but they're just one part of the formula, really. So what you need is more diagnostics to get out there. There are a number of tools, like when you are trying to sell a new teddy bear or something like that, or you're trying to deliver a new UI experience. You use some diagnostics when you decide what you're going to do. You're going to hire some people. You're going to do some market research, and you're using their probes. But the best probe that you can have to accomplish your goals is to put your own probes on there.
So, Myron, how do you think quality plays into this?
I think quality is really key. One of the biggest aspects of quality it is the focus. So you can't just put any quality team on there, and just like any development team, you can't put them to solving this problem. You have to build the team with learning in mind. And so when you're building a team with learning in mind, you have activities that increase knowledge and skill. Then you have activities that sort of validate or assess where they are. And this is where I'm talking about probing. And so uh, quality, um, and by quality I mean code quality, I mean feature quality, I mean the quality of the interactions and the experience, the customer experience, user experience, our ability to actually meet the needs of the people in the market that we're attaining. That's what I mean by quality. And so when you identify up front what it means to actually to have actually learned or to have actually leveled up, your team starts empowered and knowing how to get to that next level. So quality is really, really important. That's why while at Rangle, it was really important for us to develop an idea, and instead of calling it things like test plans or quality, we began talking about the idea of it being a delivery strategy. So when you start off with every practice, whether it be DevOps, software engineering, quality practitioners, agilists, when you start off understanding what it takes to deliver that next nugget of value to market, like that you have the makings of a very, very fast, very effective team. So quality, all the aspects of quality build into that effective team, understanding a delivery strategy, and being able to get things out in the market, starting with the end in mind, in other words.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's something we've always preached at Rangle while you were here and previously, that quality is not the checkbox at the end of the process. Quality is end to end. It's at every stage of your pipeline, from product vision right through to, when you actually launch into market.
I used an analogy yesterday when I was talking with someone about creating a cross-functional team like this that's organized around the delivery strategy. And that is, well, quality is owned by everyone. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone does quality in the same way. But, I was in the United States Navy for a while, and there was one thing that you learn very quickly, that when there's a fire on the ship on the ocean, everyone's a firefighter.
Right.
You can't hide from a fire on a burning ship. And so that is a perspective that I take into when I'm coaching a team or managing one of, whether it be my DevOps practice, my agility practice, my decisioning systems practice. I empower that team by letting them understand that as a cross-functional team, quality is owned by everyone. Agility is owned by everyone. And it's your responsibility as a skilled professional in your discipline to add to that. And so we line up that delivery strategy. Here are the 5 things or 6 things that need to be done. and then that team sets to work to figure out how to accomplish that in addition to adding that marginal value to to production or to the market. That's a really critical piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think the firefighting is a great analogy for cross functionality. When you're in an agile team and you're creating a product, especially when you're getting close to launch, it's all hands on deck, and it's never an every man for himself situation. So yeah, I mean, let's dig into the idea of real cross functionality, because we talk about this in every facet of business. We talk about breaking down silos, but as we've seen at Rangle with our consulting, or as has been noted in a lot of enterprise companies, you don't break down silos just by telling people to go get a coffee with somebody from another department.
Right.
You don't break down silos by just decreeing from the top, thou shalt, go talk to your colleagues. There has to be like real enablement there.
One of the hardest things is to figure out how to get from ordering people to be cross-functional to actually creating a cross-functional team. I think it starts with, at a philosophical level, the understanding of how teams work, and most importantly, how the individuals on that team work. When I was working on end-to-end delivery pipeline for a very large client, organizing around a team of software engineers, product managers, and basically every role you can imagine. The most important part, which is the hardest part, is getting in contact with the intrinsic drive of the members of that team that chose certain professions. And so it's important, most importantly, you want to create a problem statement that everyone can understand. So the problem statement that I took to the team was, how do we create an end-to-end delivery pipeline that allows us to have an always ready to launch service model? Mm. And asking the question that way allows me even to this very day to go to a DevOps engineer and say, all right, well, how would you enable it? And so a DevOps engineer would probably say something like, well, I'll build the pipeline to not only end inside of one development environment. I'll actually add to that pipeline so that there's a place for feature code as well as delivery code to be as a part of all the builds. So our configurations are going to be going into GitHub or Bitbucket, as well as, I'm going to create a repository for the visual regression and the functional regression, as well as a unit test. So I'm going to build the entire pipeline so that, and enforce some of the rules that we have about our process. So we're going to do a lot of process automation there, and say things like, well, you have to commit your code here, and your code's not going to be committed until these 5 things are done. Like, the system will actually not allow you to put an increment of value or commit an increment of code. Right. Software engineer may say, may answer in a different way, as well as every other role on there. So you really want to connect with the intrinsic motivation of the people who chose to be in that field. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen is people saying, well, we have 7 developers and one tester, which is another mistake, and I won't get into that too deeply. So we'll just have the developers. They'll just write all the automated scripts, and the tester will just, whatever's left. And to that I say, well, I have a lot of friends who are software engineers, and more often than not, especially when you deal with some of the best talent in the universe, like at Rangle and other places that I've worked, these people got into software engineering like for a shot at automating a drone to Mars. And so giving them a task that goes against their purpose, is not aligned with their career, is not a way to add that motivation and the intrinsic value for that person, so that they feel like they're a firefighter when there's a fire. But if you ask them, hey, well, how would you add quality to this? You'll be surprised at the answer. Like, it turns out that people are typically really interested in that field of getting systems experience. And so you can leverage that to say, all right, well, what can you do to mock up this interface or that interface? What can you do to add some verification here as we're doing X, Y, or Z? They can build these systems and add on to these systems in a really miraculous way. And so it's really important to connect the intrinsic motivation for people who join that profession before they were on the team so that you can then figure out the best way to integrate their skills, their motivations, their goals with your goal. And that's delivering that
Absolutely.
minimum viable product or that value to the market.
Definitely. I mean, for me, this makes me think of, just sort of those underlying principles of digital transformation. One of the ones we always talk about, the one that we always feel is the most overlooked, is culture. And again, culture is not something that you can decree from on high. It's not something that you can just put a few rules around and, it magically happens. Culture is about, in a digital transformation scenario, really enabling and empowering your teams. And, I can't think of a better way to enable and empower people than saying to them, how would you solve this problem? Because, like you're saying, you'll get a surprising answer. You'll get something that you probably haven't thought of, but it might be the greatest solution. I think
Absolutely.
a lot of people, especially if you have really talented teams, they're waiting for a chance to do something awesome. They're waiting for a chance to prove themselves, to tap that potential. And it's not just, that your team has one or two star players. Everybody's got something to contribute there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the themes that we, even the name of the podcast really centers around people, and people really make or break your ability to add value to the market. They really make or break your ability to be agile or to have business agility. The interactions of individuals is, to your point about culture, one of the things that I focus on. In my current role, I'm actually bringing together 5 practices, and these were disparate practices that had their best practices, and I said practices like 5 times in a row. They had their scholar level engineers that they look up to, or business people that they look up to, and in that kind of situation, the only thing that you have is the fact that these are people. Uh, from a leadership perspective, it's really important to focus on what do the individuals want, knowing that I don't have expertise in all 5 of these practices. And so what the biggest thing is enabling them in a way that allows them to understand where they sit, what they can contribute, and really creating, you know, I've heard this word a lot, psychological safety for people to try things, to take risks, and to fail. And that's what this is all about. Cross functionality. In order for you to have it gel and for you to reduce the incidence of cliques being formed around certain silos within the team, you really have to give everyone the ability to try things and fail. um, a big theme a big theme that I said earlier about what I look for in teams or what I try to build in teams that are trying to iterate in the market is build a team that's ready to learn. There's nothing that stimulates learning like being okay to ask a quote, I'm putting air quotes up, dumb question. Because cognitive dissonance is one of the most important factors in teaching adults how to learn new things. They have to feel comfortable asking things that are known by other people and feel comfortable in the response that those other people do and helping them level up. Um, all these things are connected, and people are so core to this aspect. So I know you talked about culture, and we're talking about culture here. Another one of the aspects of how to measure culture. So again, we're talking about putting probes into your organization now. Is engagement, and how can you build engagement, and what are some tools that you can use to 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 gauge what your engagement activities or your culture activities are, how they're affecting the actual level that people are engaged or empowered, or feel safe and protected and satisfied coming into that workspace, coming into that cross-functional team to deliver things that had never been delivered before into the market.
Okay, cool. Myron, I like what you said about psychological safety. Knowing that you have a background in adult education, can you talk a little bit more about the psychology of the team and how you create that safety and how you create that understanding of your people?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing is um, understanding a little bit about the group process. I studied a little bit of psychology, and I'm saying that in air quotes as well, from a neuropsych perspective. And building a team is really important. There's 4 phases that are sort of like understood from a group process perspective. That's sort of the forming stage, the storming stage, norming, and then performing. And so you have to understand at first that there are going to be conflicts. It's a new environment, and it's really natural. The thing that you can do is you want to focus on facilitating and understanding with your probes what stage you're at. And so when you give teams goals, you can essentially understand how efficient they are working together, and do some analysis to find out what's going wrong as they're beginning to work together. That's one of the first things to understand, and understanding it's going to take time. And you can do there's plenty of articles out there about group process, um, forming, storming, norming, performing. The second thing and this is the thing that I focus on a lot as well, is figuring out a tool to understand the individual and what work is most satisfying for them. Personally, I like to use a tool by Gallup called StrengthsFinder. Um, it allows me to very quickly understand people who come from all over the world, and what they need as far as like instructions for a particular assignment, um, where they will most likely not necessarily only succeed, but really love the work that they're doing and be happy to come to work the next day. So like engagement, and most importantly from that, it tells me what types of complementary partnerships among the members of the teams I should encourage. And so these 2 aspects of what I do when building that psychological safety is creating an environment um, where there are the most opportunities for the individuals to grow, be engaged or satisfied in the work that they're doing, and for that team to get closer, faster to that performing state. So, for example, if you need to build um, a type of website or experience that's never been developed before, and there's a person on your team who's always wanted to do some statistical analyses, then guess what? There's an opportunity for them to actually participate in the user testing or the research, partnering with the external vendor to get those numbers down and analyze those things. So that's something that person is, in this case, not prepared to do. They don't have the tools or the experience to do, but because it's something they've always wanted to do, 9 times out of 10, they're going to learn those tools. They're going to install them. They're going to upgrade your entire team, and you're going to get the statistical analyses done uh, uh, by a person in-house, so that when the vendors go away, you have the knowledge and the expertise to continue doing those types of things. And that's another probe you can put to the market. That's an example of how you can maximize a person's internal like motivation to to really take a big risk. And one of the things that we talked about a little earlier was psychological safety. And that scenario that I just laid out, 9 times out of 10, I can get someone to try something that they've never tried before, with very high stakes, with very high visibility, to oftentimes a very good result, with them knowing that this is an opportunity for them to shine. It ties directly into their internal purpose, as well as the purpose of the organization and the team. There's something really magical that happens when people feel valued for who they are, in addition to what they can do today.
Myron, thanks for being with us.
It's always a pleasure, Rebecca.
If you'd like to hear more from me and Myron, you can check out our personal blog at medium.com. It's called Practical Delivery. That's medium.com/practical-delivery. If you'd like to hear more from Rangle and more from me, you can check out Rangle's blog at Rangle.io/blog. That's RANGLE.io/BLOG. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks for listening to this episode of People-Centered Innovation. We'll be back next week with another 20 minutes to make you think, spark conversations, and get you seeing tech in a broader way. Special thanks to my guest, Myron D. Parks. This podcast is produced and recorded by me, Rebecca Holland. Our editor is Igor Vichikov, and our executive producer is Michelle Huang Rutherford. Our theme music is provided by PremiumBeat.com. If you'd like to hear more from me and the Rangle team, please visit us at Rangle.io and check out Rangle.io/blog. We'll see you next week.